Planning Commission meeting. And we'll start off with the roll call. George Piper.
Here.
Nicole Wethington.
Here.
Scott Swell.
Here.
And myself, Casey Sampson. Okay. And moving on to approval of the minutes. If everyone's had a chance to review the minutes, the three of us here are present. Scott was not, so if I could have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Motion and a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Any old business to come before the board? Hearing none, we'll move right into new business, which is a certificate of appropriateness for a Washington Street alley activation. And first, if we could hear from staff.
Good evening, Commission. Tonight, my presentation will be a little different. I'm not going to show you all the pretty pictures. I'm going to let the applicant do that, but I'll give you a brief overview of what we have in front of us tonight. So tonight is the Heart of Lebanon making an application for an alley activation. The applicant tonight is Missy Krulik on behalf of the City of Lebanon, and because of Missy Krulik on behalf of the City of Lebanon is because City of Lebanon technically owns the alley. Actually, the Board of Works has control of that alley. So that's why Mayor Gentry has signed the application, allowing Missy to make the presentation for this activation. So just to make sure that's clear tonight for everyone, that's why it's worded the way it is. So this is the north-south alley located adjacent to 112 and 116 West Washington Street. So this is in between the Boone County Annex Building and the Lacey Boggs Optometry Office, so the Castle Building. This property has not been before the HPC tonight. Technically, this property has no address, so again, we're talking about alley activations here. So that is the certificate of appropriateness tonight, is alley activation. This alley was vacated for vehicular use as part of the infrastructure improvement project around the historic square that was completed in 2018-2019. The applicant is proposing a walking tour of the history of basketball in our community for this alley activation. The artwork is intended to be interactive with QR codes that link to YouTube videos and a smartphone-based tour app called Districts. The applicant has supplied a very detailed description of the components for the design in the COA application. Indianapolis Sign Works, who just completed the mural underneath the 65 bridge on the Big Four Trail, has been commissioned to build the project and have supplied renderings for the COA application. Both are included in the information supplied to the Commission prior to the meeting. All artwork installed on the adjacent facades will be digitally printed on a flex vinyl product stretched over frames that mount to the building using approved masonry fasteners. So this is something we've talked about in mural conversations over the last couple of years on what is most appropriate and what isn't. And Indiana Landmarks at the time, when they were still with us, had always suggested that any artwork should be applied in this fashion, not necessarily painted onto a building. It does less damage to the brick if it's not painted. Technically, you have one side of the alley that's more modern brick, but the Castle Building is still historic brick, and the application would be best just in general on both sides. Lighting is already installed in the alley on the 116 West Washington Street structure. And there's been some conversation back and forth on whether that's enough lighting to be appropriate or not, but we can certainly talk about that as the meeting progresses here tonight. It should be noted that the backdrop to the alley activation when entering from the south, looking north, is the historic Memory Hall Gymnasium, which has a lot of the basketball history. So it's kind of a cool view, and Missy will show those pictures tonight, but as you look north, you see kind of the backdrop being a part of the old Lebanon High School, middle school. Quality artwork projects in the district have been encouraged. This project has been very well thought out and planned. Staff believes the proposed changes will not have a negative effect to the historic nature of the square. In fact, this proposal will educate visitors and enhance the experience that they have in our square. Staff recommends approval of the COA application as submitted. Excuse me. So with that, unless you have any other questions for me, and you're free to call me back up after Missy makes the presentation, but I'm going to let her do her thing at this point and show you the renderings of what the alley activation looks like.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, put that down. Okay. All right, my name is Missy Krulik. I am with the Heart of Lebanon. If you don't know, we are a 501c3, which is an Indiana Main Street Association. Our mission is to enhance the heart of our community. And how we do this, we use the Main Street approach to facilitate community transformation, and we do that through 4 pillars, which are organization, promotion, design, and economic vitality. The design pillar is exclusively what I want to talk about tonight. The first purpose of design is to guide and implement physical changes in a Main Street district that may make it physically attractive to shoppers, investors, business owners, and visitors. And the second purpose is to protect the historic properties and encourage and celebrate new development. So we have the Alley Oop project, is what we've called it. Go to the next slide. Why alley activation? The benefits are it improves public safety and beautification in a downtown. It provides opportunities for engaging public spaces, places for people to visit, relax, and enjoy being with other people. Expanding the pedestrian network and connectivity to other parts of downtown, highlighting historical assets, and enhancing pedestrian experiences through a car-free, intimate, scaled space. So that's why alley activations are so important in your downtown. The location that we chose in talking to the mayor is the Washington Street Alley. And so thinking of this, standing in the alley, you can see the picture on the left is standing at the courthouse and looking down the alley towards Memory Hall. So the concept for this alley. Utter the word basketball in Lebanon, Indiana, and you'll begin a conversation between young and old. While historically basketball in Lebanon began a bit later than in the other communities, it quickly became a favorite sport in the town's teenage boys in the early 1900s. The school's reputation and skill level improved year after year and culminated in 3 state titles in 1912, 1917, and 1918. With a record that includes 6 Hall of Fame players, 8 Hall of Fame coaches, 3 state championships, 2 2,000-point career scorers, and the first high school athletic to be on a Sports Illustrated cover. Memory Hall was built in 1931 and served as the Tigers' school home until 1968. Then known as Memorial Gymnasium, the 2,200-seat facility lasted long enough to host the renaissance of Lebanon basketball, a rebirth brought about by Rick the Rocket Mount. Stories about Mount are legendary and sometimes seem to surpass belief. His main claim to fame remains being the first high school athlete on the cover of the Sports Illustrated in February 1966. The gym was witness to all of it. Soon after Mount's departure for college, the high school changed locations in 1968, and with that came a new gymnasium. Memorial Gymnasium was also a prominent feature in the 1986 movie Hoosiers. So when considering the project that would engage all members of the community, basketball was the obvious choice. The location of the project is the alley recently vacated to vehicular traffic in the recent $11 million infrastructure reconstruction and design of our historic downtown. And like Derek said, this project will include a walking tour of the history of basketball in our community using informational exhibits, QR codes that link to YouTube videos that will depict Lebanon's basketball history on a smartphone-based tour app called District that will walk visitors through the multimedia narrated historical presentation. And I've also spoke with Boone County Basketball Hall of Fame about this project, and they're eager to help me in compiling that information. So design. In working with Indiana Sign Works, this is the design that we've come up with. When approaching the alley from the newly renovated Courthouse Square, visitors will be greeted overhead by a 14-foot high custom fabricated aluminum archway mounted on 6-inch square black posts. The archway will feature the silhouette of a basketball net stretched from one end to the other, with Memorial Gymnasium as a backdrop. In the center of the arch is a 36-inch diameter sign panel with a laminated digital print graphic that features a newly developed logo depicting a basketball in place of our famed courthouse dome with the slogan, "This is home and home is basketball." Visitors will also be greeted by two 24-inch cast concrete basketball bollards at the entrance of the pedestrian alley. The pavement surface of the alley will be cleaned, prepped, and primed with a painted floor graphic topped off with a protective clear coat. The graphic will feature a solid yellow-gold surface with the "This is Home and Home is Basketball" logo, along with painted basketball court lines on each end of the alley. The middle of the alley features a half-court line with an outline of a basketball, along with painted circles for the younger kids to hop from one to the next, mimicking a bouncing basketball. The facade of the buildings that flank each side of the alley will feature 7 digitally printed changeable flex vinyl graphics and frames of various sizes mounted to the brick with masonry fasteners. These changeable graphics are of various sizes, including 4 5-foot by 6-foot, 4 4-foot by 4-foot, and 4 8-foot by 15-foot Lebanon basketball depictions. They include historic photos of Rick the Rocket Mount and the 1912 state championship team, to name a few. The alley also contains an electrical control box that will be laminated with a digitally printed basketball graphic, you can see in the picture. The visitors will also have an opportunity to take a seat in the alley at a black metal table and chairs under the yellow gold umbrella that you see on our plaza downtown. So that's the presentation tonight. I'd love to get your input.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from Missy right off the bat? Well, I have a few. So I think alley activation, and this alley specifically, is a very good use of space. Being right, walking up to the courthouse, there's ample parking behind. I think it's excellent. I have a couple concerns historic-wise. One being, I guess unfortunately, the largest part of it, the alleyway itself being painted. I think that's very bold and almost takes away from the improvements that we just made and then most importantly, the courthouse, which is the focus of our downtown historic district. And I understand that's a big part of that project, but it's a big visual too that I think is a little distracting. And then kind of going with that same thread with the logo, I think continuity is important in a community. And we already have a lot of different logos that you see around the community. And to change the city logos again, essentially, when it's just been branded downtown and we just went through that as a community, I have a concern there. I love that this is home and home is basketball. I think that slogan is nice, but just the little bit of change of the logo, I think continuity is a little better there. And I also had a concern about the idea of basketball. When you think of downtown, that really wasn't where basketball is. It was more at the schools. For a short time there, Memory Hall, and then move over, obviously, to the current high school. So I'm not sure if that really is if it kind of works well with historic downtown. The archway, I think, is gorgeous. I think it's beautiful. I think, though, that there is other elements like that black aluminum that could be increased. Derek mentioned lighting. The south on Main Street, the other alley on the south side of the square, that activation is spot on with the rest of downtown's improvements. And I'm not sure, are these like little pedestals that you lean up against to sit? Is that an
No, those are the information signs. Those would have, if you're on a walking tour and someone doesn't have a smartphone, they would be able to gain a little bit of information from those signs. But if they have their smartphone, they can pull up that QR code and get a video. And then the district walking tour also will have more pictures and information. So,
And
so
that
yeah,
makes sense.
That'll be an informational.
Just seeing the yellow, I almost thought, you know what I'm talking about, those like leaning, they've got
Yeah.
those pedestals, and I didn't know if that's what that
Yeah.
was.
Nope.
And then the vertical height jump stick, I'm not sure what the correct term is. I only see that once in the spread. Is that still being utilized, or is that just an idea? What?
It was just an idea of maybe something that could be put in the alley for something interactive, but it wasn't a main focus of what we were doing. Yeah.
I think having the basketball there, the signs of the old gymnasium, and even the one of the current gymnasium, and then, of course, the historic pictures, it does flow well graphically. And even having those, I can see where you're starting to tie in, but it seems, well, it is, that this whole alley is focused on that basketball. And I think there could be a healthier progression, almost if that was done north of the alley that crosses. And I don't know how to better explain that, but to lead up to that, because you're going to, for instance, if you were on the square, you would walk through this basketball and then walk another block before you get to anything and seeing nothing prior. And then lastly, and I know I'm going at it back a lot here, but we can talk individually on everything, but lastly, have you secured the permission from the two building owners to utilize those signs? And the reason I ask that is if they don't have that permission, we can't ultimately issue a COA when the entire design may be changed if they don't allow you to do that. Those are the key items that I had.
Okay. First of all, with the building, the permission to connect the signs, the commissioners have been given the plan, and the building owner the other building owner has been given the plans. They haven't told me that they disagree. They haven't really given me any comments on it. One thing that I was considering, if we could not attach them to the building, was doing decorative poles that you could put the signs on, like informational signs. So there would be a plan to mount the pictures between poles that were decorative if we couldn't attach them to the building.
I personally think, in kind of the thread of continuity, I think utilizing an idea like that would be more appropriate, especially on the opposite side of the square, on the south side, how there's already those poles and the catenary lighting. I think that having that catenary lighting, on all four sides of the square would be ideal. And kind of doing what is set up now, I think we're limiting ourselves on that. And utilize, I think you could still utilize those plaques on the light pole, that could be set up. And string your banners throughout, either on individual light poles or in between them. There's a lot of different options. There's designers way smarter than me that can figure that out. But I know for me, historic-wise, trying to get something that's a little more tame and then has a solid, continuity with the rest of the downtown elements that are in place.
Yeah, specifically with the brightness of the flooring, or the street covering, it's important to, in a lot of alley activations that you see, they use a lot of color to kind of draw the eye to the alley. If it was all muted colors, it might not garner as much interest as it should. I noticed that all the buildings on the Washington Street side are pretty neutral in color. There's no, like a lot of the other sides will have creams or purples or blues. That side is really kind of void of color in of itself, the buildings. So I think that punch of color would be really nice on that side of the courthouse square. It draws the attention to the alley. The point of it is to get people to stop. Like, what is that over there? Let's take a look. Let's get out of our cars, kind of, go in that alley and see what it's all about. So that's why I like the idea of the color. I like the idea of the basketballs. It kind of draws your eye to the alley. Trying to think of what else. The basketball on the dome, I think that's a clever use of the courthouse. It was really creative, I thought, really kind of branded that alley. It's so small it's so small on the sign. I mean, I know that it's on the floor, on the street, but you'll see that as you're walking up.
I have a couple of observations
Yeah.
and then a question for you, Missy. On the paint, I guess, is a big concern.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing that from above and, directly above or an elevated view. As you're walking, you're not going to see that. It's not going to pop out at you that much because you're going to be walking and you'll see it as you're coming down the alley. So I do like that. But as far as the basketball in the dome is very similar to the seal for the city. If it's in the bottom corner of our video right here, I mean, and you barely notice that it is a basketball. I think that's a very clever use of that too. The question I had was the utility box or the electrical box there. Would those be interchangeable? Would there be more than one pattern that could be on that, or would that just be the basketball, or is that, because I was kind of looking at the quote and it wasn't specific on the bid either.
It's just that one type of graphic. They said that they would clean, prep, and apply the wrap, so it's a wrap that you would
Oh, because
put
it's not
on the
interchangeable, it'd just
electrical
be, yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's a
gotcha.
wrap.
Yep. That's a wrap. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Have you done like the research for who's going to be putting together like the videos? Is that going to be a community project? Is that going to be students, former players? Do you kind of have a rough idea of what that digital tour would look like?
Well, I had contacted the Boone County Hall of Fame, Basketball Hall of Fame, and they're willing to help me put information together, and I thought they would be a really great source of information and materials that we could put some videos together.
Okay.
Definitely have, the city's help on that and produce some quality videos.
Okay.
With the painting of the yellow, I can't personally get on board with painting that whole alleyway. I think it's too distracting. It's too much, in my opinion. But I wouldn't be opposed to seeing white markings, or even doing it in yellow. Remove the yellow, make what's white, well, white still, and what's black, white. Or coming up with gold and white on the floor. It's just a lot there. And then I also worry about the maintenance. I've driven over many murals that have been on the road, and they don't last very long. Now granted, those are driven on and not walked on, but we also have to consider that if this is an activated alley, that we're going to be plowing that, and that's going to be scraped continuously throughout the winter. And unfortunately, it seems like our winters are getting stretched out further and further. Along with underneath the substrate of that, how long is that going to last? So if that asphalt starts to crack, which it will, then what do we do there? Now we have this largely painted that's cracking. And unless that is completely ripped out and pavers are put in, or other type of materials, I worry that what it will look like. It may look good for a year, but what is it going to look like next year? And I don't think any of us can honestly give that answer, because we don't know what's underneath and how long that alley's been there. I don't know when that last time that alley was paved or resurfaced or taken care of. And I would ask that, talking with the city and the communications about the logo, of redesigning that, if that's in their branding guidelines. Certainly, it's a subtle change, but just to see if that's within the historic district. I don't know if that's actually well within our scope, but I think on the broader side of it, it is. Again, I like the black aluminum, the archway, the signage. I personally question the history, though. I think the commission needs to take this really into consideration about how much of the alley should be dedicated, how much of our downtown should be dedicated to basketball when it's not necessarily in the downtown district. And then finally, I think in order for us to consider a COA, we would have to have that final approval. Otherwise, you're going to be coming right back to us a second time when if they say no, we have to completely redesign it. And I think we need to look at the design as a whole, and have a larger conversation. Because this is the first time that we're seeing this project, and it's a pretty large project for the area.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask if anybody else had anything.
I kind of understand like what you're saying, like you want to, you want to see that almost stick with the vintage look that the downtown revitalization is going with. And I agree that that bright yellow gold it's very vibrant, and knowing the history of the buildings on that side, and they are kind of that all one color, I agree. A lot of them were built within a 25-year period of each other and were reflective of each other, and between the library, the courthouse, the post office, which is further away, but still all of them, the Knights of Pythias building included in that. So I'm not opposed to a pop of color. I guess I would rather see more of like a flow of almost symmetry around the square personally. And I like the idea of some of the pictures, of some information. I guess I'd just rather see like the lights, like the alley on Main Street has, some more tables and umbrellas similar to what's on Meridian. So that's just a personal take on it. But I do like it. I do like the information it can offer. I just wish it was something that kind of flowed more with that kind of vintage vibe we have downtown.
I think really adding, I wish I had a picture, but I'm sure we all are familiar with it, but adding those light poles that are in the Main Street alley that goes from Main Street to South Street. Having something like that with the additional lighting, I think you could really utilize a lot of your banner space or artwork, even if it still stays on the walls. I think it would still fit very well there, even if there was nothing mounted on there. But having the continuation of flow. And I guess not that it probably matters because we're not the ones funding this, but I was just are the bollards still in play? Because I did not see them on the Signworks invoice. The two round basketballs?
The round basketballs, yeah.
Okay.
They're.
Did I miss it on the invoice?
Oh, no, they're purchased from a different company.
Okay.
Yeah, they
reason I asked is because I didn't know if that was a change of plan or if it was just not included.
No, it's from a different company that would provide those.
Well, I think at this point, I think it would probably be best to have a deeper conversation about this. I don't think there's, unless I am wrong, having a strong consensus on approving this plan as submitted. But if anybody would like to take a motion to approve the motion as planned, but just having the discussions here, seems like there's some different views. Derek, I'll let you.
I'll chime in on that. The discussions need to happen in these meetings, so you'll either need to give her some advice on how you want it tweaked and bring it back, or approve it with, X, Y, and Z contingencies. But deeper discussions will be either at this meeting or the September meeting, so.
Well, the alley is owned by the city, right?
Correct.
So the only thing is just attaching something to those buildings. If not, we could just put those on freestanding poles.
Correct.
And not even have to contact the business owners.
Correct.
Or the building owners.
Correct. Yep. So, if you feel strongly enough that the changes need to be significant enough to have it redesigned by Signworks, I think that is fine. But I would like to hear you all give Missy some feedback on what that looks like. If it's close enough to where the floor needs to change to a more muted color, or something else needs to be tweaked slightly, not trying to apply any pressure to make a approval tonight, but we can go that route as well. But if the design in general changes are significant enough to need a
different rendering to come back and present, I think that's fine, but I think some definite deeper conversation should happen tonight about that, so that we can come back and make this an efficient thing. We can't get together as a group, completely and talk about it offline. So that's the purpose of the public meeting here tonight.
Sure, well, I think, I know I've talked most here, made a number of suggestions on, me personally would like to see the color removed, the yellow color removed, and have just be white or gold striping. But I do have an even greater concern about utilizing painting the alley and what it's going to turn into. Do we have that information about the quality of the alley is it cracked now? What is that? Do you know anything about that?
I just know that Andy took a look at it and then gave me the quote, per, what his suggestion was that we
Okay.
do with the alley. He did say, that, if you didn't like the yellow, you could resurface the alley, and then switch the colors around, if the yellow wasn't appealing to the commission.
Do you know, Missy, if Signworks has done similar projects like this before, and and maybe how they, I think to Casey's point, maybe how that, how well it lasts, how well it wears? Do you know if they've done similar projects, or do you know? I know he had a couple of pictures, I think, from some other communities or some other things. I didn't know if there was any way to maybe have some more maybe additional information about that.
Yeah, I could from other communities that have done alley activations and painted the street. When looking at alley activations online, a lot of the alleys have painted streets because it's a cost-effective way to enhance the alley with some artwork and not put it on the historic structures. So it's just a way to bring that pop of color. But yeah, I can find out from other communities on what the wear has been. Now you're just talking about foot traffic. That alley, if you look at that alley, it has a significant slope. So that's good for the paint on the alley. The water will run off of it, so.
The other communities, were they perpendicular with the downtown, the square? Do you know? Were
I don't know.
teeing right into it?
Yeah, alley activations are really big with downtowns and main streets now. You see, that's a big thing that main streets are doing. As far as how big their towns are or where their alleys are located, I do not know.
And I agree that alley activations are becoming a thing. You look at just as our neighbors, Noblesville to the east. But again, they've used elements that complement the downtown, the limestone, the masonry throughout the design. And this is using just elements that are already in place. The biggest part of this is using an element that's already in place. And I think that as a community, we could do something larger here in this alley that's right perpendicular to, like you quoted, the $11 million project. And I feel like this project could be a lot larger with the city being more aggressive on this project and not just painting an alleyway and hanging up some signs. I know it's more than that. It seems more than that. It's the cost, the dollar figure is more than that. But that is what I think the community is going to see, in my opinion, that we painted an alley and we put up some signs. And I think when we've done so much more on the south side, I think there's more we can do here. And Derek, I understand trying to give as much information as we can tonight, but I think it's also fair, this is the first time that we've seen this project, and we have to have some time to come up with some other ideas. So I would, I'm sorry?
It's not our job to come up with ideas.
Well,
And I think as far as wearability, the clear coat is, they've obviously done this process before. So with it not having traffic on it, I think it will withstand that. If it would need to be paved, then that would be something that they would get into in the construction. But again, it doesn't bother any of the buildings. It's just the alley, and the city owns the alley.
It is the responsibility of this commission, though, to make sure that projects that come before the commission are complementary to the historic nature of downtown. And when we are talking about a major design change, potentially, that is something that the board is going to have to, the commission is going to have to look at greater. Because this is not something as submitted that I can support as one member. And if you have no, issues with it, that's fine, but I need more time to look at what is something that, we can't just say no. Because if I just say, no, Missy, this isn't good enough, then she walks away and has no direction of what to go, and then we've stalled out a project that's important, which is alley activation. So it is our job to make sure that we give direction, and we just may have to take some time to find that direction.
I would agree with you, Casey, because, as of now, what I'm seeing does not go with the look of the rest of our downtown. I don't disagree that something needs to be there, that we need something to draw the eye, something that is a little pop of color, but, yeah, as of right now, it doesn't fit the rest of the historical downtown. But I do like the idea of this. I do want to see something like this. Again, first time we're talking about it, so I don't know if I just want something more muted or maybe more of like a roving display. I don't know, but I want to see something like this, just something that flows better with the look we already have going in our historic downtown.
Derek, this would be a question for you. I don't want to make a motion to decline this COA and have to start over. What's the best way to move forward from here if we want time to look at this? Table it to the next meeting as simply as tabling it, or what's your suggestion from staff?
Table it, the idea of more time is why I send these all out to you a week prior to the meeting. So you've had certainly some time to look at it, and I would hope some time to digest it. I would question what exactly the theme of downtown is. We need to define that. If we're going to continue on with these conversations, whether it's tonight, whether it's the next applicant, or whatever it is. Nicole, to your point, what is the theme of downtown?
I think it really, to me, when I see it, it brings about I consider our downtown having been started with the dedication of our current courthouse in 1912. And I like the look of bringing that early 20th century vibe back to the downtown. And I think we're doing that with the light posts, with the pavers, with the bricks. At the library, we did a very in-depth project when the courthouse turned 100, and there's a lot of things over there that, again, like I said, that just reminds me of that era. And as we've been updating downtown, I think that's kind of like what I like seeing, is almost like you step back in time and you feel that that July 4th, 1912 dedication to the courthouse, and the little small businesses and thousands of people on the square. And I just like that look and that feel and that kind of small town pride right there. And that's the theme to me, is that early 20th century little step back in time.
Sure, which is, I understand what you're saying there, but as far as, road structures or artwork, are we talking about artwork that reflects period correct artwork, or are we talking about artwork that reflects the history of Lebanon?
I think historical reflection is how I would see it.
Okay. So Memory Hall being in the district does reflect in this application as far as the artwork is concerned. So then the question becomes, for me, as staff, and working with applicants in the future, are vibrant colors what we talk, is that what we're talking about here as far as muting those and toning those down to something that would be more in the palette of what you would see in the early, 1900s and the early 20th century of what they would typically use? Is it material that they would use for this kind of thing? Because the applications today for an alley activation, alley activation in general wasn't even considered in the early 20th century. They were functional. They were for deliveries or for whatever the case may be. Uses of these alleys have certainly changed over time. And to activate them in today's terms is to utilize them for a space that the community can gather, visitors can gather. And I think the idea of keeping the charm of the early 20th century, I don't know necessarily what that means, because it would have been filled with delivery trucks for, milk services or whatever the case is, shoe material, shoe repair material, or whatever the case is. So I know it's a difficult conversation to have and to define exactly what it is that we're looking for here. But in general, I think we really need to take, as a commission, a really hard look here at what we're asking these applicants to bring to the table. To bring something to the table that is reflective of the early 20th century, I don't know if that's realistic in certain terms. So I think we need to define what that is. I think colors could be a part of that conversation. I don't know that pavement or pavers or concrete or any of that conversation is even in the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission.
I disagree wholeheartedly. We sat here 2 years ago and did that exact same thing when, was it Rimenschneider, and they came and showed us, these are the materials that we're going to put around the courthouse square. These are the materials we're putting in the roadway. These are the materials we're putting for the light structures. All that is extremely important. The substrate is literally the foundation of that we're all going to be walking on. And so the building materials, I think, is critically important.
The guidelines of the HPC are walls, fences, and facade. Very clearly laid out in the ordinance and what it is that we all have jurisdiction over. What the road material is made of is not a part of the decision of this commission. It's simply not. Now, colors, painted colors, things that go on to these materials that are within the district, certainly are. I don't disagree with that. But if we want to make the alley concrete or asphalt or pavers, it's technically outside of the decision of this commission.
I think that's something as a commission that we need to look stronger at, even going forward, because to me, I disagree with that interpretation. There would have been no purpose for us to have any meeting to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the downtown revitalization plan at that point then.
There were certain elements that did take this commission's approval.
And with that, why I think that something like that actually matters is this right here. When we're talking about that, if they're coming to our approval to paint this alleyway, essentially, because it's, let's make this really basic, and I'm not degrading SAU, the project at all. As an example, they're coming here to paint the alley. And we as a commission have to just make a decision, does this complement the historic downtown? What will the future of it be? We do have to consider materials that when we are painting a sign or a facade, we require what the materials are on that facade, so in 2 years from now, they're not deteriorating and cause a larger problem.
New construction, you do. You're on existing surfaces, you're approving colors. So if somebody comes in here and wants to paint a brick structure that has not been painted, you're approving that first process to paint something that hasn't been painted, and then the color.
We would
You're
not-
not approving the material that they're painting on.
We would not approve an awning with asphalt shingles on the side of a facade. That is a new construction, correct?
New construction, correct.
So we would not approve that because it is not the correct materials.
Correct.
So if someone had an awning and they wanted to have asphalt shingles, this was a conversation we had 3 years ago with EB Ballistics. We said we didn't want to have the shingles, we wanted to have something else because of the material type.
Correct.
So we have to go that direction.
That was
And
part of the facade of the building, which I agree with you 100%, Casey.
so that's one part of it, though. So if we ignore what the many pedestrians are going to be walking on, if we ignore what our community is going to be seeing from the road, and it will, if this was approved as submitted tonight, it would look amazing as soon as it was done. But I do have a concern on what it would look like in the future, not knowing what material is underneath them. How long will that material last? And that is a part of the decision-making process, in my opinion, to see if it is appropriate. It'd be no different if they wanted to lay some material over top of it. That is going to affect the buildings around it, of how it flows.
Sure, I understand.
So I think there's maybe more to this conversation, as in not what the applicant has submitted, but what the board really truly needs to be looking at now that we do have a newly renovated, wonderful downtown. We have to protect not only that investment, but we have to protect what's been gifted to us from 200 or 100 years ago. And that's a juggling game that we're going to have to pursue for a long time. And this right here is precisely that juggling act. On the front of it, you have a beautifully renovated downtown. To the one side, to the east side, you have a building that was constructed in 1912, or early 1900s. To the west of it, you have a building that was built in the 50s.
Correct.
So how do we decide what is appropriate in that area and how close and how it complements? So I think all elements that have been discussed tonight are relevant. And they may not be word for word, is the type of asphalt or the type of floor relevant to the historic preservations? No, it's not. But on a whole, when this is a large project. This isn't somebody coming up to us asking, can I have robin egg blue or lime green on the side of my building? This is a multifaceted project, of which that there are considerable issues that I personally have, and I think other commissions may have or may not have, but that need to be addressed.
Sure, I understand that, and that, we eventually tried to get the Signworks people here tonight. They weren't able to attend, but to talk about some of the more technical things of how long the surface will last painted on the alley. But as far as, other things, condition of the alley, condition of the substrate of the alley. I really think that's outside the conversation here. I think if we want to have conversation with the contractor here on life expectancy of the application, I think those are appropriate questions to ask. Condition of the alley, I think, will be another conversation to have with the contractor to make sure that the condition of the alley is such that it can accept the application that they're going to apply. Not whether or not it can handle a 20,000 pound, load of deliveries, because that's not what we're talking about here tonight. We're talking about, applying artwork to the surface, basically. So, again, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm not trying to, back anybody into a corner, but to have some sort of recommendation for the applicant to take back to the contractor so that we can come back to the September meeting with either questions answered or a more appropriate design, I think is what we're after here tonight at the August meeting. From what I'm hearing, I'm not asking, again, backing anybody into a corner, being judgmental or anything like that about making a COA tonight. But certainly we can't just say we need to have deeper conversation about this and continue to come back. As you said, Casey, we need to, at some point, guide the applicants. That's what, again, if we're not going to issue the COA here, we're not here to design things, Scott. I agree with you 100%, but we are here to guide the applicants into what could be acceptable for a certificate of approval.
I think this seems like the longevity or the lasting of the project is an issue. And it is for me too, but I kind of read between the lines as far as the clear coat or whatever, but I would think that having the contractor here that could maybe speak on how long they would maybe even guarantee it, or if it would have to be updated every so often or what, but that would be my suggestion for you, Missy, here or any future applicants, I guess, too, so.
So with that then, with members of the commission, I would like your, yes or no on what you feel on the color. Because I don't, if I'm out and voted 3-1, that's fine, but I don't want to go down a conversation and waste, again, more time to say, yes, this is going to work fine, and then we say, well, we don't want any color. I personally would like to see it black. I would like to see nothing there on the alley. I do not like that, but I think it takes away from the downtown. I do. But if we're going to go with something, I would like to see something that's one color or two directly onto the black asphalt. But I would like to see the other commission's views on what the color is so we can give direction.
Is that maybe a follow-up question to me, an actual question? Now, would that be something that would be approved at a later date by someone besides us, or is this just the artist rendering, like that yellowish gold that was on there? Is that basically what you were going to do, or is that, so was that open for? Because I don't think that the cost wouldn't be affected because it would still be paint, of some sort, and then the clear coat. But would that be, if that was approved, then do we have, we're locked into that yellow, that's the end all be all?
I don't know how that works. If they approve the yellow, then are we locked into the yellow for that design with the HBC?
Or does the process have to start all over again? We have to get a new bid? And where does the bureaucracy stop there?
The color itself, would be, sorry, I'm thinking of several things here.
You're fine.
Answer your question.
If it's the same material, though, I don't know that the color would be that much of an issue.
No. As far as estimates and, no, if it's gonna go from this yellow color to a, navy or pink or green or whatever, no, that's not gonna affect it. Now, your decision on the COA, will be dependent on that. And I'm not sure back to this color, kind of bouncing over to that end. Again, the contractor, maybe Missy can answer this. That looks very close to the color scheme of the branding for the city. I don't know if that's the exact color that was picked out because of that or not, but to me, that looks very close to the branding as we talked about continuity earlier in the meetings. But again, my hesitation in answering that question, and it's something I'm going to have to digest a little further, is whether this commissioner has any jurisdiction on what the color of the surface can be.
Right.
When we're talking about roadways.
Yep.
Mounting something to a building, yes, we have that ability. Yea or nay. Painting something on a building, yes, we have that ability. Fences, and I would consider the archway in that fence realm. Wall structures, but as far as amenities that are outside of that, it brings up a good conversation for me to go back and make sure I have my facts right on what it is this commission really does have the power to approve or
Well, to me, it's a piece of art. So I think it's absolutely, it'd be no different than if it was mounted. We are viewing what a piece of art may be complementary to downtown. We had that discussion with the Lebanon Youth Council. So where do I would like to know that in the future then, because where does that line draw? Because if this is vacated property, it's not a roadway, so it's not a roadway. We can't say what the roads or tell the street department what to do. But if it's not a roadway, it's a vacated alley, it's just a piece of ground. And that's going to be painted upon, which makes it a public work of art.
And I will also tell you that the circle in front of the Boone County Jail Distillery is yellow. So there is yellow, the Big Four Trail is yellow. So there is yellow used on the street surface or the horizontal surface of the street.
The yellow, I want to make it just very clear, the yellow is not the color that I have an issue. Honestly, it's 100% on brand. I think just by my eye, looking at that color, looking at the This Is Home, and then looking at the Lebanon logo, I wouldn't be surprised if it is the exact CMYK. The color is not the issue, it's the boldness of it. If you made that, all the lines that yellow, I think it would go with the branding. I think it would flow well. I think it's a compromise. But it is not necessary, if that was purple, blue, it wouldn't matter. It's the boldness of how large that is. That's 80 foot to 100 foot long?
120.
Well, I'll throw 2 cents in to answer your first question, Casey. I think you asked about you wanted the commission's sort of input on that. First of all, I kind of like the yellow just because it's Lebanon colors. It kind of looks like a basketball court, but I think I could certainly be amenable to liking, because when you look at the sign and when you look at the disc up in the middle of the basketball or the netting that goes across on the archway. It's a black background with the yellow and black contrast. So maybe that's I think what you're kind of saying a little bit. Maybe that's better to have the black background with those contrasting colors. I can go either way. I think on that. I think if that's something that whether we need a more of a design from Signworks to see what that would look like. If that's something that maybe is part of our direction to Missy and for this application, that's something maybe we could direct on this as well.
As an additional suggestion, I think having some type of lighting, utilizing the catenary lighting, would be a strong direction to go to. It flows well with the south side of the square, and it would make the center more popping, make the courthouse, make the plaza that much more inviting by having everything kind of flow in together nicely.
I agree with having the additional lighting and that kind of flow with the elements on the other sides of the square, because ultimately these alley revitalizations are to draw people in, to draw people to downtown, to draw people to visit and socialize and mingle. And I think lighting, the seating that you are planning to add, I think that's what's going to do that. I agree that it is bold. I worry about that with the look of the rest of the downtown. I would like to see something a little bit more muted. I'm not a huge stickler about it so much as I would like to see more in the way of lighting and seating to invite people. Because I think it's great. I love seeing people hanging out downtown, utilizing the space, utilizing what's been given. That's my input on it.
I can answer some questions right now, too, about the questions I had previously. So I do have to, certainly can define what it is that you all have jurisdiction over as far as streetscape goes, which is defined in our ordinance. So streetscape is the appearance from a public way, the distinguishing characteristics of which are created by the width of the street and sidewalk, their paving materials and color. So you do have that ability to decide on what the color is. The design of the street furniture, for example, street lights, trash receptacles, benches. I would classify posts that information is posted on in that, and use of plant materials such as trees and shrubs. And the setback, mass and proportion of those buildings which enclose the street. So streetscape is defined in our ordinance, and color of the streetscape is something that you all do have jurisdiction over. So answers that question.
Thank you, Derek. So rather than decline this, I would like to, Missy, I'm just talking to you directly, to see if we can table this. I'm going to ask a motion here in a second to table this. And what I will do personally is I will draft up what we had as well talked about, all the different points that can be then given to Signworks. Obviously, not all points can be put into a project. I don't know how this is being funded, what your budget is or what, but maybe if he has the points from the different commissioners that says, here were the ideas, here's photos of the other alley, here's a general overview of the downtown, can we get something that maybe fits a little nicer? And I think if we go that route, then we all can progress for our September meeting. So with that, I would,
Just clarification, Casey, so would it be the things that the draft thing you're talking about would be things that we've talked about here tonight?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make, because I think, I guess I wouldn't want to see anything that we didn't talk about here tonight that, went into a draft, and, because, I don't want to look like that we're, trying to circumvent, the public discussion on that.
no, not at all,
Yeah, okay.
just as a collection
Sure,
of
okay.
topics, of ideas that we have talked about to give to Signworks.
Okay, and I guess, Missy, I guess, is there anything you need further clarification, just on any of the points that, that we discussed here, or anything that you feel you need additional clarification on?
The basketball bollards, fine with that.
The basketball, sorry?
The basketball bollards that are in the front.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I like, I like them, but that's me.
Yeah, okay. The wrap on the electrical panel, fine with the artwork on that.
Yes.
Okay. So it's just, our concern is the mural on the street and the lighting. Okay.
Yes.
Mainly, I guess, mainly just the color. I guess, I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but seems like that was brought up a couple of times, and then yeah, and then the lighting, but on the rendering, though, were those were like sconce lights, or is that what is proposed?
That's what's on the building now.
That's what's on the
there
building
now, okay.
currently, yes. The Boone County building has lighting on the side of it already,
All right.
yes. And then maybe more tables and chairs. Because we already have tables and chairs with the umbrellas in the plan, like that are on the plaza. And that creates continuity with the furniture.
Absolutely, I think that's key, and I was, with that, maybe if you use, and again, and this is not a direction, just an idea since we're here, utilizing that logo then that's been altered with the basketball, and if that was, say, done on white or gold on a black surface, and you have those the tables and chairs, do you think that would be enough then to get the project across to the community of a basketball court, if that was, maybe it was white? Because I guess what I'm trying to get at is if you're going to be putting tables and chairs, how much of this mural is actually going to be viewed?
Yeah, the tables and chairs would be at the north end of the alley.
Okay.
The county usually, you can see in the rendering, the county has a picnic table there right now that they utilize for, eating outside and things like that. So we'd like to replace that with something more appropriate and provide that seating for individuals to have their lunch outside or come downtown and just another space that they can gather in.
So then, just for clarification here, I'm looking at the rendering and I don't see an empty space. So that's going to be set on, those tables and chairs are going to be set on top of the graphics that we're putting down?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, at the north side.
To help with that vibrancy, having some color, which I think is good, but just having so much of it is what my concern is. What if on the north side, we kept the yellow, "This is home," or the logo that's there, kept that where it's at, and stopped at the baseline? And then had the rest of that be gold with the archway, the three-point line, all that gold, and the elements that are as well all the way down throughout the end. And then if you, and just hear me out here, if we got rid of the southern "This is home," since there's going to be basketballs there, that would make that less busy. It's still going to be quite visible of what's going on in the alleyway. You have a large, 36-inch sign right there that has pretty much the exact same verbiage. I'm not a designer, but maybe that's like something else that we can add to it. Where that gives the color, it's vibrant, but then at that point, we truly are flowing away from the courthouse, and it's getting kind of more vibrant as we go through.
So the center basketball court is okay in yellow. Did I understand that right? Keep that in yellow and then transpose the colors of the logo at the north end.
I think I just want to make sure we're saying
Yeah.
the same thing, sorry. But what I was saying is making the actual line, where the basketball is in the center, that line, painting that yellow on a black surface.
Okay, so you're wanting the street black and the black lines flipped to yellow.
Basically transposing, I
Okay.
guess, is that what
Yes.
you're thinking?
Yes.
Transpose those
Okay.
But
All the way
it,
across.
right, but then you've got the third color of white in there, and I don't know how to kind of make I think if you did that all yellow, it's not gonna look good. And I think it's cute having the little circle things like a dribbling ball, hopping, that's really neat. It's perfect for the activation, but I just don't know design-wise if that will look good only having it in yellow. So maybe that stays white, but I think the actual, this is home on the far end, actually leaving it exactly how it is, just cutting it off at the baseline.
Okay. Okay. That part yellow, the rest of it black
Right, because then that,
with gold.
you know, and
baseline.
especially if that's where the county is sitting, county employees sit typically, is down there at the north end. You know, that is the closest to Memory Hall. And I don't know, maybe design-wise, I don't know if this would make sense, because I'm not a basketball player, but having lines on the side is like the sidelines of the court. You know, I'm not opposed to having more things there, just not as large.
Okay.
And then I would like to see personally, as a member, the permission from, or at least something. That way we don't have to go back and forth back to October again, if that's fair. Anything else? Okay. And in conclusion, I think this is a good project to have. Pardon us as we work through what's new to us too, as this
Right.
downtown, so.
No, I appreciate, and that's why I'm here, is to get the ideas from the HPC, and I want this to benefit the downtown as well, so.
So with that, I will make a motion to table the COA approval until the September meeting. And I would seek a second.
A second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there any other items to come across the board this evening? Seeing no other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Motion and a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned. We will see you in September. Thank you very much.